Good evening, or should I say, willkommen to Rotgetonte Brillen. That is my German coming to the fore, Callum, because it's been a successful international break for Scotland qualifying for Euro 2024 next summer in Germany. But of course, the main action returns this weekend as the Dons are back. It's Saturday night football at Pittodrie, and Dundee are the visitors. It's been a while since we've caught up. How's your international break been?
Guten Abend, es ist fantastisch. That's all I've got. Nat 5 German, can't quite remember it all. But no, it's been good. Missing club football, missing it so much that I won't be at the game on Saturday. So just glad we'll be back to normal stuff and also talk about, and hopefully it'll be a bit better than where we left off on the club football front.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit worried, and good to have a few of you along. Mark Robertson joining from Houston. I'm sure he's working hard and got us on one of his screens. But it's Paul Donaldson saying, the calm before the storm. Of course, there's a storm warning out for the next couple of days. We're doing this live on Wednesday evening. So you said hope it's better than where we left off. Well, last time we played at home, the weather conditions weren't all too great, and certainly the forecast for Saturday's not great, although actually might be a benefit of having an evening kickoff, because I think the rain and some of the wind is due to die down come the end of Saturday. But before we get a look into club football, Callum, I think it's only right that we take a look back at what has happened so far on the international window for those of an Aberdeen persuasion. We'll keep it Scottish to start off. Alfie Bavidge was involved for the 19s. Quite difficult to find out how much involvement he had, because some of the coverage for the 19s isn't as in depth. But he did start their most recent game against Portugal and was on the bench in a 2-0 defeat against the Irish. Unfortunately, the 19s continue their kind of poor run under Billy Stark, but I'm sure good for Alfie Bavish to get some minutes on the back of getting his first senior goal before the international break on loan at Kelty. For the 21s, Connor Barron, back-to-back 90 minutes under his belt in two huge games for the under 21s against Hungary and Malta, getting them back on track for their Euro qualification. Ryan Duncan, unfortunately, just maybe token substitute in the 92nd minute in that first game against Hungary, and no minutes in the second against Malta. But I suppose for those two, Callum, good opportunity to get away with the national team, but for Connor Barron, more minutes in the tank, and I think for certainly from what I've read of the 21s, another impressive showing from him.
Absolutely. And Paul Donson's comment saying was that both under 21 matches at Fir Park, Connor Barron played well in both matches, especially in the Hungary game, which is excellent to hear. Not only obviously that he played a lot of football, but also he's continuing that good form. A man that I didn't have too high expectations coming into this season, and in most recent times, he's probably been one of the outstanding candidates in that midfield anyway. So delighted that he's carrying that on. Unfortunate for Ryan Duncan, but good experience for the young lads regardless. And hopefully Connor Barron can take that back into Saturday at Pittodrie.
Yeah, absolutely. And more players getting minutes. Jamie McGrath was away with the Irish team, didn't play in the 2-0 defeat at Greece, as that defeat all but ended their chances of qualification. What a shame that is. But from a personal point of view for Jamie, I'm sure he'll be delighted to have played the full 90 against Gibraltar and grabbed 2 assists. And the assist for the third goal, Matt Doherty's goal, what an assist that was, Callum. I'm sure he'll be coming back to Cormac Park full of confidence.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Absolutely excellent technique. And the only shame is that it wasn't in a red shirt. But brilliant stuff. And I think I saw he shared it on his Instagram story as well, that earned him, his performance earned him a spot in the team of the week for the qualifiers. So congratulations to him.
Oh, well, as I said, he'll be absolutely flying. One player that will be maybe disappointed with the international break was Bojan Miovski. Obviously, as we kind of discussed on the last show, going into it, after missing a few chances, and then his barren spells kind of continued, because he played 84 minutes against Ukraine, and unfortunately for Macedonia, they lost that game, which has seen their hopes of qualifying for next year's Euros all but over now. And then didn't feature at all last night as they ran out 3-1 winners over Armenia in a friendly. Probably good from an Aberdeen point of view that he didn't feature last night, unless he was injured, of course.
Yeah, let's hope he wasn't injured. But as soon as you said that, I was like, well, that's quite good. Maybe a little bit of rest, not too much involvement over the international break, I suppose, and hopefully he can get back to his best, because he has missed a few pretty good chances in recent times. Probably unfortunately he didn't grab a goal the international break. Maybe that would have boosted his confidence. But I'm happy then with the fact he got a bit of rest before coming back to us.
Yeah, absolutely. A player that hasn't got any rest before coming back to us, well, certainly because he played 90 minutes last night, was Richard Jensen. Didn't play in the weekend's 3-0 defeat away to Slovenia, and it was quite a poor international break for the Finnish national team, losing both games, following that up with a home defeat to Kazakhstan. I mean, we all know what it feels like to lose Kazakhstan. Thankfully, we didn't do so at home, but they threw away a 1-0 lead and lost 2-1 to the Kazakhs, which has really hampered their automatic qualification hopes. I think it's pretty much ended it. But Finland benefiting from the fact that Scotland have already automatically qualified for the Euros, as they will take Scotland's playoff place. So the Finns look set to go into the playoffs and could come up against old Scottish foes, Israel, if all kind of pans out correctly in the playoff path between Finland and the respective other teams as well. So I'm sure Richard will be disappointed with how the results panned out and be looking to get back to winning ways, or more positive ways, with Aberdeen anyway.
Absolutely, and also sort of relieved that he only played in one of the matches as well. So hopefully be a little bit more fresh than perhaps he might have been. But by all means, not a fantastic break for Tricky Dicky.
And another player who only played one of the two games and earning his first call-up for his country was Slobodan Rubezic. Played 77 minutes for Montenegro last week in a 3-2 friendly win over Lebanon. He did come off when it was 3-1, so didn't concede both goals, and was not in their squad as they went down 3-1 to Serbia the other night. They aren't out of qualification. They need to win their last two games, so Ruby could still yet make his way into that Euros squad for Montenegro. I think they do need to qualify in the top two. I don't think they have any hope of a playoff. But interesting to note for the likes of both Richard and Ruby, if they could, their respective national teams could get to the Euros, that could benefit us financially if both those players were to be involved. Likewise, I'm sure Connor Barron will be doing his best to force his way into Steve Clarke's Scotland squad, because I'm pretty sure if we look back at the World Cup, what Hearts benefited from all their Australian players at the World Cup, I'm sure there's a financial incentive to clubs for their players being involved whilst they're away at the major tournaments.
I'm sure I remember us getting money for Niall McGinn being there in Northern Ireland once upon a time. So absolutely, and it would also just be excellent. Imagine watching Ruby through the summer playing at an international tournament. I would be over the moon with that. And that's what the people need.
Yeah, Paul saying that Rubezic might have picked up a knock. Well, I'm assuming that would have been against Lebanon, given he came off against them and didn't play. Again, that was kind of the worry I had last night when I saw he wasn't even making the bench for that game against Serbia. So that would be a bit of a concern going into Saturday. Excuse me. And then last but not least, of course, would be Duke, who went away with the Cape Verde squad. Didn't play, didn't feature at all. I don't even think he made the squad, as they lost 5-1 to Algeria last week. And then quite difficult to find information on Cape Verde against Comoros, but I did my best and saw he made the bench, but I could not find any information to see if he came into the team in the second half. They unfortunately lost that game 2-1, so not the best international break for them. But the African Cup of Nations draw was made at the weekend as well. So Duke, of course, as has been said, will be missing games in January as a result. And he will come up against 7 times African Cup of Nations winners Egypt, Ghana, who've won the competition 4 times, and Mozambique. So looking forward to a bit of Duke versus Salah in January.
I don't think he'll be away all that long,
No.
having heard that group, which is a good sign for us. Good sign for us. And also, well, it's kind of frustrating that he actually went away if he wasn't going to play, but at the same time, glad he didn't play because it looked like he was needing a little bit of a rest. But just the travelling aspect, and I know some of the players will be back, but I don't know if he'll be back by this point. And if he's not back by this point, then he might struggle tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I did wonder that as well. And, what you said as well about, whether or not, him going away and then not playing is a good thing. Maybe him just being able to get away from Aberdeen for a while is a good thing. Hit that reset button and come back firing. We obviously saw the best of him last season in October time. So maybe he's just been keeping himself in storage until the return of the international break and saving himself for Dundee this Saturday. But yeah, I kind of a point I was going to make later when we come on to the Dundee game was that I remember after the last international break, Barry Robson saying, a few of the players didn't come back till late. So if we're even speaking about most of them maybe coming back today, they're going to be out Cormac Park training tomorrow in the absolute lashing rain and 50 to 70 mile an hour gusting winds. So I'm sure some of them, the likes of Duke that's been in Portugal and that, are going to absolutely love to be back at Pittodrie and Cormac Park tomorrow.
Oh, I think they'll be wishing that they can go back off because not the most fantastic weather. Let's just hope that it clears up come 6 o'clock on Saturday, and that the game does go ahead. Although if it's not going to be there and it is rearranged, then it's more likely that I'll be in attendance. So I'm not too bothered actually. Come to think of it.
Yeah, and obviously we're live tonight here on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. So if you are watching live, remember to hit that like button, and there are a few of you interacting with the show tonight as well. Also tonight is the Aberdeenshire Shield second round as an Aberdeen 11 take on Turriff. Be quite interested to see how many of the Aberdeen 11 Calum that featured against Fraserburgh as the Dons won on penalties in the last round actually play against Turriff tonight, because of course we saw Angus MacDonald captain, Esther Sokler involved, Rhys Williams or Dadia. Do you think we'll maybe see a few of them mentioned tonight?
Possibly. I mean, Angus MacDonald. I can take that sombrero comment off the screen now. Has MacDonald been away in London over the weekend celebrating his birthday? Will he be celebrated further with another appearance for the Aberdeen B team? I'm not sure. Rhys Williams and Dadia, they've barely played any football, so I hope those two in particular are involved. Probably Esther Sokler too. But if Ruby is injured, does that mean we will see one of Angus or Rhys Williams return to the starting lineup? Or in terms of Rhys Williams, I suppose, just be in the starting lineup at all?
Yeah, exactly. And as Kaiser said, the senior players were murdered by accounts from that game against Fraserburgh. I was speaking to Alfie Stewart's sister, and I spoke to a few of the Fraserburgh fans that were there as well. So the boy from my work's a season ticket holder, and said he wasn't really impressed by what he saw from the supposed first teamers out there from an Aberdeen point of view. And there's maybe a reason why they've not seen many minutes this season. But I guess this competition does allow those players to get minutes where they wouldn't elsewhere. I'm sure the Turriff players are just gutted that they don't have a chance, given Aberdeen were drawn at home. They don't get a chance to run out at Pittodrie like the Fraserburgh players did. And yes, if Rhys Williams is going to feature, he needs to get out of Fig's back pocket first, because by all accounts, Fig had him inside out last week.
Sorry, Fig is Scott Barber for anyone who's not best friends with him. Just thought you all know.
Or anyone that is not a Highland League fan, because most folk in the Highland League would know who he is. As we look ahead then, Calum, to the return of club football, it is Saturday night football at Pittodrie, a 6 p.m. kickoff as Dundee's Premier side head to the city. Well, I was going to say this Premier side, but that changes year by year because it's probably the city with the biggest yo-yo teams, Edinburgh. Quite disappointed to miss out on that title, I'm sure. But the 6 p.m. kickoff does allow many fans to enjoy probably a day out. That's the main point of moving the kickoff times. And we didn't mention it on the last episode, but of course the club now has a link up with Stagecoach, which allows fans like myself stuck in the Shire to take advantage of 50% off bus travel to games. I couldn't use it against St Johnstone because unfortunately there's no Sunday service out my neck of the woods. So I'll be taking full advantage of that this weekend. And of course, if you are within the city boundary, you can get free travel through First Bus as well. So given, I suppose, the forecast as well, I'm sure some of the maybe junior games and kind of Saturday games that people would tend to attend or play in could be off. We could be set for quite a healthy crowd on Saturday, of course, depending on what travel conditions may be like over the next few days.
Yeah, should be a bumper crowd minus me, providing it goes ahead. And providing all the buses run correctly from out in the sticks out your way, Glenn. But good initiative, I think, from the club, providing an extra sort of discounted mode of transport at this sort of time when cost of living's through the roof at best times, and we're coming towards that sort of festive period slightly as well, and school holidays, I suppose. So discounted, fair play for them for sorting out whoever was in charge of that. It's just a shame. We might hear Glenn bang on about his Jupiter buses more often.
You mentioned coming up to that time of year. I was actually asked to be the man in the red suit. I don't want to spoil it because I know some kids tune into this episode in the car. For the Pittodrie Primary Christmas Fair, or the Pittodrie School Christmas Fair. So that was certainly interesting. Unfortunately, I had to turn it down because I have to take Rory to it. But I know there's certainly a few of you that tune in wouldn't mind seeing me come down the chimney on Christmas morning.
You're at it and sick, if I'm honest. Absolutely disgusting, man.
I've seen the DMs. People know what they want. Anyway, back to the football. You've got some stats that you produce. I won't steal your thunder because you did the research on that. So, do you want to tell the people what we can expect from Dundee? Because I know a few of you do like your stats when we come to games.
I forgot about that. I actually provided some research, some very brief research. This is going to be mildly concerning to a lot of you, sure, including you, Glenn. 4 of Dundee's 7 league goals this season have come from set pieces. That's quite terrifying, isn't it? Is it a concern for you?
Yes and no. I think it's obviously a clear threat that Dundee pose. Obviously, former Don Joe Shaughnessy in the back line will be a main aerial threat to deal with. But I think I'd like to feel it's an area we've improved on recently. You know, we've got that settled backline. The only way I would be maybe slightly concerned is if the likes of Ruby's missing out, and we maybe have to make some changes to that back line. And that's when you get maybe players that aren't used to playing with each other and some of the decision making. Obviously, we saw kind of the players switching off in the game against Hibs, so of slight concern. But again, I guess it depends on the weather, because if that's a big gale wind at the weekend, will we see many balls being swung into the box? Because I guess like the game against St Johnstone, when the pitch was slick and the wind was blowing, I thought we were better when we had the ball on the deck. The only thing hopefully it stops us doing is long throws this weekend.
That was exactly what I was going to mention. Please God, don't let us try these long throws again, especially when it was wet and windy. I suppose it might cause havoc, but when they're not coming off at the best of times, let's not try it now. Also, Dundee rank lowest in the league for average possession in league games, which I suppose is a good thing for us. However, they started pretty well, and it shows they are capable of getting results without the ball. But that sort of plays into something that we were big on in the last game, in that why did we play with 5 at the back at home to St Johnstone? And I would carry that into this Dundee game when they rank lowest for keeping the ball. And if we start with 5 at the back, which sort of limits us going forward, where the onus is clearly going to be on us, where we're going to have most of the ball and hopefully make a lot of chances. Why limit yourself with 3 centre-backs? And maybe if Ruby is missing, then maybe that's our chance to go to a 4.
Yeah, and I guess that's maybe the point that David McLennan's making slightly. If we couldn't turn it on against St Johnstone, what's the chances of us turning up against Dundee? And I do wonder that point you make about the formation, given it was quite frustrating for large parts against St Johnstone, how much of it we will actually see this weekend. But the point you make about Dundee being the ranked lowest in terms of average possession does probably bode well for us in the fact that we will dominate the ball for large periods. But you just need to look at Dundee last time out when they travelled to Hibs. They sat in frustrated Hibs for large periods. I was looking back at some of the player ratings. Trevor Carson got 9.4 out of 10, which, I mean, just tells you the job that he did that day. But I guess Hibs fans would have been saying after that game, probably similar to what me and you were saying after St Johnstone. On another day, we win that 3 or 4-0. But if you're going to be defensively resolute, you have to stick to your task. And it looks, by all account, that Tony Doherty's got this side well drilled. I'm sure Dundee fans will point to the game against St Johnstone themselves when they were 2-0 up and through that game away as well. So they do have games and moments where they lack concentration and switch off. Every team does. I really do think, though, in this game that the first goal is absolutely crucial, and I really feel that we're going to have to be the team that get it. I think if we can get that goal early, it will kind of affect that Dundee confidence. And we all know what happens if teams come up here and get the first goal. They're going to sit in, and that's giving them something to protect. And how much can we then go and be able to break a team like Dundee down?
They don't even need to get the first goal and sit in and have something to protect. I mean, St Johnstone just let us hoof the ball into the box the whole game, and we couldn't break them down, which is sort of why I really, really, really hope we don't start with that back five. I think it slows things down massively. There's not a lot of width. It's all very narrow. And then when we do chuck the ball and it's taken so long to work it out wide that they're already set up. However, something, I don't know if this will provide you with confidence or maybe switch you the other way, Glenn. They've played 7 games. Obviously, their last game was called off thanks to the storm. They've kept 2 clean sheets in their 7 league games.
Yeah,
only 2, so that means conceding 5, just for anyone who's a bit slow. It does that give you confidence in the fact that they're there to be got at, and maybe they are a bit frail defensively.
Well, I mean, if you look at the 2 teams they got the clean sheets against, you could argue it maybe doesn't give you confidence, considering it was last time out. As you mentioned, their previous game was called off due to weather against Ross County. So that 0-0 at Easter Road was 1 clean sheet, and then they had the 2-0 win against Hearts, or was I think maybe 1-0 against Hearts at home. So keeping clean sheets against Hearts and Hibs is to be respected, and I think shows that they are more than capable of holding their own against teams that I think maybe we would have expected them to concede to. I certainly expected them to lose against Hibs. They were the only team that let my coupon down that week, so still not over that. And I think that's maybe something that we've got to be wary of. And I think, Jamie makes a point in the comments that Tony Doherty is not to be underestimated. He'll come up with a plan. And it's an excellent point, because I went back and I looked through Dundee's last 3 formations away from home. So last time out against Hibs, they played a 5-3-2. They went to Celtic Park, lost 3-0, played a 4-4-2. And the game against St Johnstone, where they were winning and it ultimately drew 2-2, played a 4-1-4-1. Games, 3 different formations. What's he going to line up with here? Barry Robson will be trying to rack his brain and do his homework, and I'm sure Barry Robson will do his best to put out an Aberdeen team that, let's be honest, from our point of view, should be beating Dundee. We spoke about this kind of run in October. Well, I say we, I mean you were banging the October drum, which is kind of not started all too well, and has put that probably extra pressure on this game as we discussed last time out. So I'm sure Tony Doherty knows too well what it will be like coming to Pittodrie and putting that pressure on the home side, getting the crowd to get restless. If it's not going to be a great day, are people going to be as up for a game as if it would be a nice, calm autumnal Saturday? Who knows? I know, right? I'm getting into the thesaurus now. It's an intriguing game in a sense because it is kind of two rookie managers going at it, and Dundee with, I guess, nothing to lose coming into this game because the pressure for me is all on us. And as Kaiser says, I'm sure Dundee would take a draw. And I think right now, I think a lot of Dundee fans would bite your hand off for a draw, given how poor their record is when they come up to Aberdeen.
Correct, but two very good results against the Edinburgh sides, picking up 4 points, making up 4 of their 7 so far this season. So they're bound to be relatively confident coming up here, and maybe these are the kind of games that suit them, where they can be very organised and look to hit on the break. And I think it will be a very interesting battle between sort of two sons of McInnes, if you like, between Tony Doherty and Barry Robson. That'll be very intriguing. And of course, we've got one later, well, not son of McInnes, father and son, McInnes and Robson towards the end of the month too. So it'll be interesting. But they've got players that can hurt us too. And if you look at the way they set up, or certainly set up against Hibs with Rudden and Bakayoko leading the line, two big strapping lads that will absolutely ruffle some feathers. And sometimes, well, most recently, we've seen our defenders struggle with that. So it'll be interesting to see. And also, if Ruby's playing, if he stays out of anything too physical and sort of doesn't get a little bit carried away. See if he's got that cool head that he's maybe had a little bit more recently.
I'm kind of going to be interested to see actually if Zach Rudden starts the game, because I know he's not exactly a popular figure amongst the Dundee support at the moment. And interesting if they go back to Zach Robinson instead up top. So there's opportunity in that Dundee front line to change things up. Speaking of changing things up in team lines, we spoke about the Aberdeen 11 that would be playing tonight against Turriff, and Adam Heddles kindly put the starting 11 in the comments, so I'll put it on screen for those watching. But no first team players involved at all tonight, not even on the bench either. So maybe tells you either what their performance was like against Fraserburgh, or the fact that Barry's needing them for the weekend as well. So I'm sure Fraserburgh feel a bit hard done by given some of the quality that they put up against, given that what their Turriff are facing tonight. But I think it says a lot for the fact that in that game against Fraserburgh, it was the young guys that carried those first teamers through in that game as well.
Rhys Williams and Ordaddy have been dropped from the B team, essentially. Yeah. But it does sort of, no Esther Sockler is interesting, and I don't know if this is maybe the time where he gets his chance now. Duke obviously travelled quite a lot during the international break, didn't play, and his form's not been excellent this season. Esther Sockler recently bagged his first goal for us and hasn't been involved all that much. I would like to see him brought in and given a chance from the start, because we've not seen all that much of him, and we don't really know what he can do. We're at home. Miovski's been on decent form this season. I want to see the both of them out there.
Okay, well, if you're starting Esther Sockler, I'm assuming, as we've kind of touched on, that'll be at the expense of Duke. And David McLennan asks, what's the best position for Leighton Clarkson if we need midfield creativity? So that's going to be the interesting lineup in midfield on Saturday, given Barron's performances for the under-21s continuing to impress. But where does Leighton Clarkson fit into that midfield three, I guess?
We've seen Leighton Clarkson so much in that deeper six role, to use what Barry Robson used. Yeah, quarterback, all right, okay. Is it football season by any chance?
Yeah,
sorry, American football. But it doesn't seem to be coming off for him so far this season, which seems odd considering how excellent he was at times last season. Yet when Connor Barron maybe plays that role and is sort of that midfielder sitting deeper and taking the ball off the fence, looking to make things happen, he seems to be excelling in that role. And off the back of 2 good performances for the Scotland under-21s, I mean, I wouldn't play Leighton Clarkson in this game from the start anyway, just off the basis of form, really, with Barron and McGrath will be on top of the world too. But it would maybe be interesting to see how Leighton Clarkson would do slightly further on, closer to sort of Duka Miovski or Sockler, whoever's up there. Because when Jamie McGrath's played that role, he's really, really suited at that Ross County game at home in particular. He was almost up there with him quite a lot of the time, almost making a front three. I don't know with Leighton Clarkson. It's an enigma at the moment. And to be honest, I wouldn't start him.
Well, here's another question for you, because we spoke about it in the last game as well, about the need for Graham Shinney in a game against St Johnstone. Is there a need for Graham Shinney to be starting this game, given we've got a big game coming up on Thursday against PAOK in Europe to look forward to as well? And I guess Robson's kind of comments about the games catching up with Graham Shinney. Could you throw in a Dante Polvara into that middle of the park, or could you even line up with Leighton Clarkson, Barron, and McGrath? Because as you mentioned, McGrath will probably be high as a kite. Would that midfield three work, or would you be more inclined to have a Polvara and McGrath?
I would rather have Dante Polvara in there. If it was McGrath, Barron, and Clarkson, far too lightweight for my liking. I think a lot of technical quality in there, absolutely. However, be worried a little bit that we were going to get bullied in the centre of the park. And Dante Polvara, in his sort of fits and starts, has performed well, whether it's coming off the bench or starting in the big games, but not playing in the slightly less ones, maybe you would argue. I think he also deserves a chance, and with PAOK on the horizon, also a tough game down the road Sunday lunchtime at Kilmarnock afterwards, I think Shinney would probably be better suited. Well, playing in both those certainly, but maybe taking a rest and it can come off the bench if required. But I'd like to see Dante Polvara. I'm all aboard the Dante Polvara hype train, even if it's only me. I might even be the driver.
You're definitely the driver. I agree with Kaiser in terms of the kind of discussion around Leighton Clarkson and saying that he should be playing as a number 10 behind the strikers, giving him the freedom of the park. But as you've kind of made the point, that's where Jamie McGrath's been excelling so far this season. So we're kind of in a kind of nice situation where we've got two players that can play in that position to good effect. But unfortunately, with the formation that we're playing, we can only play one of them. So I wonder if we could find a formation that allows both of them. And again, David McLennan agreeing, saying he sees Clarkson more productive further forward. But on the point on Graham Shinney and playing, Kaiser says without Shinney, there's absolutely no fight. Well, you're right, because there'd be no one, running around thumping their chest and thumping the badge every 2 minutes when something goes their way. But you maybe also miss that player niggling and chirping the referee's ear when we don't have a Graham Shinney. I think the likes of Nicky Devlin could do a job on that. But yeah, he's probably right. We maybe do just miss that little bit of extra, I don't know,
Fight.
Vavavoom.
Wow, okay. I think that must be a right into classes first. Yeah. I don't know. I suppose coming off the back of a 2-week break, perhaps is the case for Shinney. However, then going into PAOK and Killie away, I would like to maybe see him rested for this one, with those two in mind, which is a shame because he has been pretty good as of late. But if games are catching up with him, then maybe this is the chance. Stick in Dante Polvara, even after 45 minutes. If it's not working, then you bring on Graham Shinney.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where if we're trusting Dante in the big games against Frankfurt and Rangers, why can't he be trusted in a game against Dundee, as we mentioned last time out against St Johnstone? And I think that's fair. Even if you made the change at half time, the game's 0-0, for example, then you bring him on and see what you can influence. But I guess it's one of those damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. We'll see all the comments that come out under the team line, regardless if someone's happy or not. looking at how Dundee may line up, obviously they didn't play in the league last time out. They did play Stirling Albion in a testimonial match last Tuesday, where some of the first team players started that game. Luke McCowan, Ricky Lamy, Zach Rudden all started that game. And they did have a few other first teamers on the bench. Again, trying to find information on kind of how many minutes the players got. It was difficult to find. So, while some of our players enjoyed time off and on holidays, which is, I'm sure, deserved after the run of games we've got, Dundee have been looking to get fitness into their players, given they had a bit of an extended time off. They've also had influential young player Lyle Cameron withdraw from the Scotland under-21s due to injury, which saw fellow Dundee midfielder Finn Robertson called up to the 21s. So they're producing some talented midfielders. So again, kind of on that midfield discussion, maybe a reason for a Graham Shinney to start, have that experience, have that bit of fight that Kaiser mentioned, and kind of look to stamp a bit of our own authority on the game in an area of the park that Dundee is probably Dundee's strongest area.
Yeah, I would agree. Certainly one of the strongest areas anyway. On Cameron, I think he's a very handy player. In fact, he scored a lot of goals in the Championship last season, and he started this season relatively well, making the step up too for someone so young as well. So if he is to miss out for this game at Pittodrie, then that is certainly a benefit for us. But I wouldn't wish injury upon anyone, no one at all.
Yeah, and I think Lyle was certainly a player that when we were doing some of our pre-season shows was a player that a lot of our fans would have been kind of happy to see us go after. And, I mentioned Luke McCowan starting against Stirling Albion last week. You've got him and Scott Tiffany on the left wing fighting for that jersey. And we've kind of seen the quality that Scott Tiffany possessed for Partick Thistle last season as well. These are players that performed well in the Championship and are looking to make their mark in the Premiership. And one player that's really stood out for Dundee so far this season, they're experiencing what we experienced last season, falling in love with a Liverpool loanee. Left back Owen Beck seems to be a real standout and a player that seems to be driving forward and looking to create plenty of opportunity. I'm sure from what I've been speaking about, certainly of Dundee, that left-hand side seems to be the strongest. So I'm glad that's going to be the side that's coming up against Nicky Devlin this weekend. But they've got players that on their day can, cause problems for us.
Absolutely, they do. They're no mugs, and they've been pretty good, I think, on their return to the Premiership. And Owen Beck's certainly impressed from what I've seen, which admittedly is limited. However, I have seen a lot of plaudits sort of online. And I suppose conversely, however, that sort of leaves us with our left hand side. What do you do there? Because I thought Johnny Hayes was very poor against St Johnstone.
Yeah.
Do you bring in Jack McKenzie?
I don't see why not for a game like this again. I mean, that's no disrespect to Jack McKenzie, and it's no disrespect to playing Dundee as well. I just think he's more than capable in this sort of environment, and he's done well enough in that position this season. And again, yes, he's had his momentary lapses in concentration, but this should be a game that he is more than capable in performing for us.
Absolutely. He seemed to sort of have a little bit of an upturn in form recently, and just also off the back of his performance against St Johnstone, where I thought he really struggled. I'd like to see Jack McKenzie back in. And also, I suppose that kind of would give the flexibility if we were going to go to a flat four as well. If he was playing left back, Jensen, Gartenman, and then Devlin, I'd like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it does offer us the flexibility, and as David McLennan says, we kind of touched on this in the last episode as well. Does Barry Robson have favourites? He doesn't change the lineup very much, and I guess again that's going to be something that we see come about 4:45 on Saturday. Is there that kind of favouritism? Is there that willingness to kind of change things up? But I guess with the break and some players being away, I mentioned the Pout game with the likes of Graham Shinney in mind. is this the game where we try and get something to work and build a bit of momentum ahead of that Pout game? Yes, we're 5 undefeated going into this game, but I mentioned kind of feeling a little bit deflated after the St Johnstone game, deflated even probably after the Helsinki game as
Mhm.
well, with the kind of the way the game went, the whole atmosphere around the kind of end of first half, start of second. It's probably quite important that we go into that game on Thursday night on the back of 3 points.
Absolutely, it is. It's a massive sort of 8 days for us, I suppose. Also,
Mm.
when you look at who Hearts and Hibs are playing this weekend, or due to be playing prior to Storm Babette. I don't know. I've not watched the news. Then it's vital we get 3 points out the back of this international break, especially given how we ended it going into it. Home against Dundee, which I'm sure will be a vibrant crowd by 6 p.m., to say the least, on a Saturday. And it's got to be 3 points, doesn't it? Nothing else. And the pressure will probably start to build if it was anything other than that.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, you banged the drum about October being the month that our fortunes could change in the league, given the run of fixtures being more favourable than August and September. And I think anything less than 3 points, there is going to be an immediate build up of pressure, especially with that game on Thursday, and knowing that kind of any hopes of qualification in Europe rest on probably winning that game as well on Thursday. So yeah, you're right. It is probably quite a big 8 days coming up for the club in terms of kind of keeping the momentum going and getting a bit of feel good factor back around the place. And yes, like folk are going to say, what do you mean feel good factor? We're 5 unbeaten, but look, the 2 draws for me have just kind of left a feeling of defeat in the mouth a little bit. So to come and be kind of speaking when we do the next episode, probably on Monday, to reflect on the game this weekend. I hope it's after 3 points.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell you what, Glenn, a weirdly informed podcast, I feel, on our opposition for once.
Yeah, well, I thought Ari was very informed on Helsinki, and I'm sure where we come to speak about Pauk, that'll also be informed. But yeah, for unfortunately, I was trying to get a couple of the guys from Up with a Bonnet podcast on the show on Monday, but they couldn't join us because they were doing a former player interview. Speaking of that, I wish the former player that I've been trying to get in touch with over the weekend would not leave me not on red. I've texted him, WhatsApped him, and I'm going to chase him up again this evening, but he's not reading the messages, so that's rather
I think
frustrating.
I think he's preparing a restraining order, Glenn.
Well, you can come on here first and then file said order.
I'd like that too.
But yes, we're looking forward to the return of club football, even if you won't be there, Callum. But yes, informed for our own twos knowledge on Dundee. Hopefully, we've provided you with enough insight, and well done on doing your own research as well, Callum, and giving that as an additional insight as well.
Thanks, Glenn. I'm a student now. I study.
Yes, you're not an old man like me, so providing the right insight. But thank you very much. As Paul Donaldson mentions, that the Young Dons are 1-0 up against Turriff through an Alfie Bavidge penalty. So good to see he's continuing his domestic goal scoring form. Interesting to see if we can hold on to that and get through to round 3 of the competition tonight. But we'll be back on Monday looking over the weekend's action, providing everything goes ahead with Storm Babbie influencing things, I'm sure. And then looking ahead to let's see if I can do this, Panthessalonikos Athleticos Omelos Constantinopolitan game on
Not bad.
Thursday. There you go,
Not bad.
Kaiser.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'll just call them Pauk. It's easier.
Makes
So we'll be previewing that. We've got a Greek journalist coming onto the show. I'm speaking to him tomorrow lunchtime, so that'll be all sorted for the episode on Monday. Until then, stay safe, enjoy the game at the weekend if you're attending. We'll see you